More realistically about how things are moving on of application development today. So I could give you all these Star Trek type of technologies, but then again, we're looking at what exactly the future will bring. Now, do we know what that is? Of course not. Okay, so let's see where we go from here. Okay, so what is the next big thing? That is the big question. It's one thing to create apps, but if you do create an application, mobile, PC, or otherwise, you want it to be successful, right? Okay, first big question. So I assume most of you here are developers, or you develop code? Yes? Okay, so moving forward, so what is the next big thing? Do we really know what that is? Okay, so we're talking about apps. What is it about apps, applications? We know what apps are. So I assume that you know what an app from iPhone or Android, etc. is all about. It's an application. So an app could also be a PC application, right? So if you're talking about PC applications like Microsoft Office, or Word is an app, Excel is an app, etc. So all these different types of applications. Now, look at the different form factors which exist today. So we're talking about mobile apps. Obviously, the stereotypical things which come to mind are, of course, the phones. So you've got your Android, your iOS, I've got Windows Phone in the middle, etc. That's one form factor, and I'm sure you're familiar with the second typical form factor, which are the tablets. Whether they're the iPad or the gazillion Android variants out there, you might want to look at a Kindle or a Nook or whatever, but you've got the tablet form factor. So both on the mobile phone and the tablets, these are what we have today as far as mobile application platforms are. So the question is, what do we have in the future? Okay, so what is the future landscape? I don't know. We don't know what the next big thing is. Obviously, all the technology companies in the US are developing all sorts of new fancy little gadgets and gizmos, but we don't know what will click. So obviously, back to the question, what's the next best thing? We don't know, right? We don't know if Apple is going to develop the Nano into something a little more high-tech where you actually have iOS in it, etc. Right? So this is an example of wearable technology. There are all sorts of other technologies that exist out there, which, you know, like embedded technologies, you're walking around with a built-in cell phone in your head, who knows? But again, we don't know when that will be. Okay, so when we're looking at, emphasize that we don't know. What are the other platforms that we're looking at today? So if you're thinking of developing a mobile app today, what can you develop on? Well, it's one thing to choose the usual suspects, right? So you've got iOS, Android, BlackBerry, Windows, you have your other platforms, you've got your Facebook apps, you've got your Chrome apps, etc. Okay, so these are the usual suspects as they are today, right? And we want to, and one thing also is that developing applications on one platform may be really cool, but it would be really great if you can develop something across all of these different platforms. Okay, and one to think of one example of an application runs on most of these right now. If you're looking at one future tech, which is going to be the next big thing, I would put my bet on HTML5. Okay, well, as far as the browser is concerned. Okay, so we're looking about different apps. We're looking about also how do we deploy these to users. Gone are the days when you're buying packaged software. You buy them in boxes or plastic cases which would contain a DVD, a CD, or if some of you are old enough to remember, a diskette. Okay? But gone are those days. So sometimes you just download them off of these marketplaces right now. So Apple developed the whole App Store concept, which everyone is now following, about how they distribute applications. Apple, when you go to an Apple Store in the US, the Apple software itself is no longer available in a box format. You have to go to the Apple Store online and download it there. So everyone else is following suit, right? So you don't get them anymore on CDs and DVDs. So the distribution model itself is also rather interesting how it is now. Okay, so there are a gazillion apps out there. When I talk about gazillion, obviously there's an actual number behind that. When you're looking at, it's hard to get an exact number based on different sources, but it's roughly like this. The number of applications on iTunes for iOS is roughly around 800,000 applications. Of those 800,000, only 600,000 are active, roughly. So what happened to the other 200,000? They were retired by the company, so forth and so on, and they're being upgraded. Android is also roughly around 800,000 active stuff on the marketplace. For Windows Phone, Microsoft claims are now around 400 applications. So roughly there are 2 million plus applications, and I'm not even including all the other platforms as well. So let's just say 2 million applications. Have you seen all these 2 million applications? Probably not. Why? Because you are only familiar with the top applications which everyone uses. So how many here have an iOS device? Okay, quite a few. So you probably have Facebook, Twitter. If you've got a camera, you probably have Instagram, etc. Some of the popular ones, popular applications. Now the sad thing is, all of these marketplaces have all of these applications which are very, very good, yet you probably don't know about because they suffer from the lack of marketing. Okay, when we say the lack of marketing, meaning they're not being promoted. Okay, so in these different marketplaces, let's say the Android marketplace, you go there, you search for particular applications, you see hundreds and hundreds on one particular topic maybe, but you are driven to the top downloads. This is the most popular. But what about those that are like number 257? It could be a very good app, but you just don't know about it. Okay, unless you're really matyaga and go through every different application, you won't realize that there might be some gem there. So, case in point, it's not necessarily how good your application is, but how good also you market it. Right? So, deployment scenarios are also important. So, how are you going to deploy this application? Are you going to be a device-installed application? Or your browser-based? That has pros and cons between the two. Second, are you self-contained, download, or are you going to make use of the cloud? Are you going to stream content from somewhere? Again, pros and cons. Kung wala kang internet, hindi mag-work, diba? So, you have to think about how are you going to deploy this application? How is this application going to work? We'll look at the case study. My favorite case study, of course, is the most popular application on most platforms, which is what? I guess? No one wants to guess what the most popular application downloaded these days is? It runs on Android, Windows Phone, iOS,